Todd County Board of Commissioners meeting. Today is Tuesday, July 6th. The time is 9 a.m. All commissioners are present along with Auditor Treasurer and our coordinator. We will stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For the amendments to the agenda, are there any? I would like to change 4.2 per policy due to the wage to 9.1. It's per policy, it has to come in front of the board, and I feel if it's due to policy, it should not be in the consent items. Was not notified of it until after I had already approved the agenda. Are there any other changes to the agenda? If not, I'll ask for a motion for approval.
So moved.
Motion by Newman, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kneisel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries. Potential consent, Denise?
Today we have meeting minute approval for June 15th, 2021. Resignation heavy equipment operator Aaron Gabler. Resignation Shane Carlberg, part-time road dispatch. Hiring of Jamie Christensen, P&Z specialist. Appoint public health nurse Brooklyn Levine. And Long Prairie Lions one-day temporary on-sale liquor license.
Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion by Erickson, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Newman. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And carries.
First item I have today is the auditor warrants. Background is sent for your review. The recommendation is to approve the June 2021 auditor warrants with an ACH and a regular manual payment totaling in the amount of $1,557,366.63.
Is there a motion for the auditor warrants?
So moved.
Motion by Kneisel, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Newman. Roll call?
Commissioner Kneisel?
Yes.
Commissioner Newman?
Yes.
Commissioner Erickson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kircher?
Yes.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
Next item I have then is the commissioner warrants. Background is sent for your review. Recommendation is to approve the commissioner warrants with an ACH and a regular manual payment totaling in the amount of $122,758.97.
Is there a motion for the commissioner warrants?
So moved.
Motion by Erickson. Is there a second?
Second.
Excuse me, second by Kneisel. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll do roll call.
Commissioner Erickson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kneisel?
Yes.
Commissioner Newman?
Yes.
Commissioner Kircher?
Yes.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
The next item is the Health and Human Service Commissioner warrants. Background is sent for review. Recommendation is to approve the Health and Human Service Commissioner warrants with an ACH and a regular manual payment totaling in the amount of $167,565.87.
Is there a motion for the Health and Human Services Commission warrants?
So moved.
Motion by Kircher, excuse me. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Newman. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll do roll call.
Commissioner Kircher?
Yes.
Commissioner Newman?
Yes.
Commissioner Erickson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kneisel?
Yes.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
Health and Human Service SSIS warrants. Background is sent for review. Recommendation is to approve the Health and Human Service SSIS warrants in the ACH or regular manual payment totaling in the amount of $58,321.41.
Is there a motion for the Health and Human Services SSIS warrants?
So moved.
Motion by Kircher. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kneisel. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll do roll call.
Commissioner Kircher?
Yes.
Commissioner Kneisel?
Yes.
Commissioner Newman?
Yes.
Commissioner Erickson?
Yes.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll now have Todd County Development Corporation. Good morning.
Morning. On a copy, I think you received one electronically too of our annual report. Finally starting to get back to some normal again after 2020, but all of us had a few challenges in last year. Starting in some of the areas, just want to touch on a few areas of our what we did last year. The main part was were the Todd County CARES Act grants, CARES Act through the federal government. We went through about a little over $1.3 million in assistance, and we had so many emails and phone calls from people, businesses, and nonprofits that really appreciated the assistance that the county board or the county gave on that assistance for the county CARES Act grants in 2020. It really helped the businesses, and I think it's really helping them to get back on their feet again for 2021. In early April, we started doing the assistance through our SBDC office for the SBA programs. Those are the Paycheck Protection Programs and Emergency Industry Disaster Loan Programs. And those programs were mainly just technical assistance, helping people sign up, get them on the applications, and tell them what they needed to do to sign up for those programs and what the programs meant. And we received a lot of assistance too through our SBDC office, Small Business Development Center office out of Central Lakes College, which helped us as far as giving tutorials for helping people go through those programs. Minnesota, the state, we also had programs through the state, which were business loan assistance, disaster programs, and also grants. And quite a few businesses in Todd County received grants through the state grant program and loan program. A little tougher application, what the CARES Act was, but a lot of people persevered and went through the programs and received dollars they needed to keep their businesses afloat. Last year, we had a project that was about 3.5 years in the making. It finally came through as far as the funding and everything, the financing for the project. That was the Second Avenue Apartments development in Long Prairie. And that was a $5.6 million project with 37 market rate units. D.W. Jones was the developer of that project. And we also had a local company, the Rosen family their foundation invested in the project and also loaned money to the project. And they became a partner also. So that was a good, first in the state, we actually had the commissioner up here, the state commissioner, to congratulate the project. Other things, as far as the Rural Business Development Grant, we finished that up last year here. And that was actually I completed the last check here in December of 2020. And that was a partnership with Cass County. We, over that period, we had grants through the USDA Rural Development and also through Initiative Foundation, which helped quite a bit put on that training for people. And lastly, I just wanted to touch a little bit on our loan program that we have. And that program is for businesses. And it's been very successful. I think we started with the original $112,000 with the county, $113,000, and the value of the loan program right now is up to $249,000. That was up to $249,000. It's over that now, but at the end of 2020, it was a little over $249,000. About 64% loaned out and 36% available for lending. Since that time, actually in the first quarter, we had one payoff, which was great. It was surprising that we had another loan we did to a business in Staples. And currently all loans, all along we've had all loans are current and in compliance, so everybody's up to date and everybody's paid on time. So it's worked out well for businesses. And then our partner sponsorships, I'm very happy that we've kept, even though COVID, we kept our partner sponsorships with all the companies and businesses that we do. So I appreciate all the help, and we appreciate the help through Todd County also. Thank you. Is there any questions at all, or?
Questions?
I do, Rick, on the gold partners, or any of the partners, Centricare is not part of that?
Centricare, 4 years ago, they were Silver's partner sponsor, but no, they haven't been a economic development partner with Todd County Development.
Okay. I'm assuming they've been asked.
Several times.
Okay.
Even a few visits.
Yeah, okay.
So, Madam Chair, I got a question.
Yes.
I was having a conversation with Commissioner LaValle from Grant County, and he does stuff all the time, does a lot of research through the state. And it lists majority of the counties, like 87 counties, and it states in here that the number of businesses in Todd County in 2015 was 681. The number of businesses in 16 was 690. 2017, it was 680. 2018 was 659, and 2019 was 651. So the question is with the pandemic hitting, how many businesses are still viable in Todd County?
We've, virtually all of them that that's a tough thing to look at for those numbers, because when a business, either if they move from let's say a S corp to a LLC, one business goes out of business, the other business goes. If they absorb a few businesses into one LLC, then those bunch are eliminated. You have one business that replaces it. So it's kind of hard to go with those numbers. And
Okay.
as far as, when they total number of businesses, and then you take into account home-based businesses and things like that.
Right.
As far as,
Because it does give us the number. This format does give you the gross sales, taxable sales, sales tax, yeah.
are those 2019 numbers, or are those?
No, I give you 2015 to 2019. 2019 was, it was down to 651 businesses in Todd County from 680.
Yeah, we've seen a few businesses be absorbed by larger companies
Okay,
or corporate.
Okay.
So they may not have a corporate in Todd County, and it's really an interesting game, because when I went through that quite a few years ago, I was asking, okay, how come it shows my business going out of business, but then I'm absorbed by another one? Well, you're out of business, but you're still part of that new business. That business is
True.
already there. It depends how they.
true, but they're still paying taxes.
Yeah, still paying taxes.
Yeah.
It just depends how their legal structure is
Okay.
on that.
I was just curious, because it was interesting just to see, has COVID affected our numbers? And you'll probably see that with the state, and usually the state's about 2 years behind
I think with
when they do
COVID,
their numbers.
and I feel COVID did affect our retail businesses a lot. Most people are buying online now. It's jumped, unbelievably, it's jumped. Businesses that have done well during COVID have been service businesses, hardware, lumber, businesses like that.
Right.
Mainly, restaurants took a real hit, especially around the whole state here. It was tough. I mean, I've known businesses, not just Todd County, that have just gone away because they just couldn't afford to stay
Right,
open because of the overhead costs.
right. Okay,
Thank you. Yeah.
thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you, Rick. And thank you for all the work have done this past year with COVID. Yes,
Hope we don't have another year like that.
I agree.
Thank you.
Yep. Lauren?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Our first item on the agenda this morning for Public Works is a request for final payment authorization for our 2021 pavement marking contract. Our options are to approve the attached resolution or do not approve the attached resolution. And our recommendation is to approve the attached resolution, making final payment to the contractor for $2,738.86.
Okay, is there a motion for the 2021 pavement marking contract?
So moved.
Motion by Kircher, second by Erickson. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed, and carries.
Our second item on the agenda this morning is a final payment authorization request for our 2021 gravel surfacing contract. Our options are very similar to the previous one: approve the attached resolution, do not approve the attached resolution. And our recommendation is approve the attached resolution, making final payment of $84,231 to Broughton Aggregate for said contract.
Is there a motion for the 2021 gravel surfacing contract?
So moved.
Motion by Knizel. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Newman. Is there discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carried. Thank you.
All right, our last item on the agenda this morning for Public Works is a request to authorize an award of a construction contract for our 2021 recycled concrete crushing contract. Our options are to approve the attached resolution, do not approve of the attached resolution. And our recommendation is approve the attached resolution awarding the contract to Ferguson Aggregate and Crushing Incorporated of Alexandria, Minnesota, based on the low bid of $192,576.
Is there a motion for the recycling concrete crushing contract?
So moved.
Motion by Knizel. Is there a second?
Second for discussion,
Second by Kircher.
is the name of the place in the board action, or am I missing it?
It is in the resolution.
Not in the board action, okay. Shouldn't we have the name in the board action?
Yes, it can be added.
That would make more sense.
We typically just approve the resolution. The board action form states approving the resolution.
Okay,
Lauren, was part of this expense going to be on solid waste also? I'm trying to think of the conversation we've had before.
I'm glad you brought that up. How it started, I'll go back a little bit, was the solid waste is required by their rules, and I'm not up to speed on their rules, but they're required to crush the recycled concrete every so often. They were gonna do that, let a contract, and then it was brought up to them that possibly Public Works would be interested in that material. Based on our discussion at the Spring Road meeting, we worked with solid waste to come up with some type of agreement. Chris McCon and I came up with basically a memorandum of understanding that we would present this to the board, let the contract use cash reserves from Public Works to do the contracting work. They would then maintain about the first 1,000 yards or tons of material to come off the belt, and then Public Works would maintain the rest of that material.
Okay.
So they have no fiscal responsibility as part of this. It all become from the Public Works.
Part of it, okay. Thank you for the
Yep.
recap of it. Any other questions?
No, but when we first started talking about it, I mentioned that maybe Lauren would be interested, but I didn't know how much you'd want, so that was kind of the deal, was we had to talk to you about how much concrete you'd want.
The benefit of crushed concrete, it doesn't go bad.
Yeah.
We would take it all because it just becomes an asset for us.
Yeah.
And we would then use it over time. We might not use it for 5-10 years, but we definitely will use it. It's in a locked gated facility on county property. It's kind of a no-brainer for us. It's great material. We will find a use for it, and definitely it is. The money we're putting into it far exceeds the benefit, or excuse me, the benefit we receive far exceeds the money we're putting into it. I had that backwards.
I'm going to ask you the question because there will be townships in line waiting to ask. Will it be, any of it be for sale?
We would prefer not to unless directed by the board.
Okay. Because I know out there, they're always looking for it because it is a a good product to
It's a
be
good product.
used.
We'd prefer to use it on our own system.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed and carried. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, good morning.
Good morning.
Just one item this morning. The final plat for the Lakeside Acres. Subdivision request to establish a preliminary plat on parcel 15,004,0000 in Leslie Township was approved on June 15, 2021 with 3 conditions. 1, complete approval of a wetland delineation prior to final platting. 2, access to lot 1 shall be restricted to, or shall only be connected to Fern Drive. 3, the applicant must obtain appropriate permitting when necessary from other governmental agencies, including but not limited to the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency and the Sauk River Watershed District. Planning and zoning has completed a review of this plat and determined it is ready for final platting. So the option would be move to approve the establishment of Lakeside Acres final plat, or move to deny the establishment of Lakeside Acres final plat. The recommendation would be a motion to approve the request for final plat named Lakeside Acres.
Okay, I'll ask for a motion for approval.
I'll move for discussion.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, motion by Newman, second by Erickson.
Correct.
Discussion.
Yes, Madam Chair. This plat was submitted first to us as a 20-acre plat, and they found out what it would cost to do a wetland or stormwater management plan. So they cut it from 20 to 3 6-acre lots to get away from the stormwater management. This area has a lot of ravines that run directly into Lake Osaka, so I'm a little concerned about that. The other thing is when we start approving these plats, I would really like to see something from our townships in writing. You know, whether you notify them or not, I still think we're gonna have to do something. I really wanna see the township sign off on this stuff. It should be a requirement. The last one that we approved in that area, I had phone calls from the realtors. And the realtor said, well, that's not what we heard. We can do this, we can do that. And it's like, no, you have to contact the Leslie Township Board or the Township Board and make damn sure that you're doing it right. So, like I said, we're gonna see more and more of these. They're getting touchier because you're starting to see second, third tier development around the lakes. It's gonna start putting more pressure on the lakes. So, just have some concerns. So, you know, with going to the 3 lots, you're not gonna see the stormwater management plan.
Yeah, so we went from 20 lots that were closer to what the standard lot size is to now some that are 6 to 6.5 acres. I think we can address stormwater management on an individual lot basis with future landowners versus when you have a lot of lots on a small area, then it makes more sense to do it on the developmental level. So in this case, you're allowed 15% or 15 for roofed and 25 total. We're gonna get nowhere near this on a 6-acre lot. And if there is anything that's needed, we can work with future landowners individually because it's 3 versus 20. So I understand your concern, and there is some steep ravines, but this is pretty mild development, 3 lots here. I think stormwater management can be handled just individually in these cases.
Any other discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair, during the planning commission meetings, are the townships notified?
Yeah, the townships are notified even prior to that. They're part of our normal notification process. So we notify whichever township this is located in. In this particular case, it's on an adjoining township line, so what's the township to the south?
This is Gordon.
Gordon. So we notified both townships in this case because they have an adjoining road. and they're given the opportunity to comment. We typically don't reach out to them. If they don't comment, they don't comment. Unless it's something really significant, we might reach out to them and get formal comments. We do invite them in also as part of our review team meetings, so they can attend that if they wish to, and they typically do. And they were in part of the original plat that was proposed on this property, but they had no comments with the updated version.
Thank you.
But Madam Chair, also you gotta realize too, that when the townships meet, when this plat was, the preliminary was approved on the 15th, whenever Leslie meets, so they might meet later on in the month and go to discuss it, well, we've already passed it. So if they've had any concerns, it's pretty hard, you know, for
Yeah.
one individual of the township to make a decision, you know, it's
Sure.
gotta be.
So we would want their comments even prior to preliminary plating, because we would want to incorporate their comments into that planning commission meeting. So typically that's sent out and publicly noticed a couple weeks prior to the actual planning commission hearing. But if that's, we can try to reach out to those individual townships and just reconfirm, and if they have no comments, we'll try to get something formal in these cases. A lot of times they don't have comments.
True, but
If-
they're the road authority, and
Yep.
they're the ones that need to make that decision.
Oh, and certainly, when there's a new road involved, then we definitely get them on board to look at it prior to the preliminary plating. In this case, the connections are all to existing township roads that are in pretty decent shape. One's a tarred road, so I would suspect that that's why they really didn't have any concerns with this particular case. And learning what we learned from when this was first presented as a 20-lot plat, we incorporated some of those thoughts, even though it's significantly different.
And Madam Chair, I can recall if this is the one, I think I was asked to call some township people, and I did call them, leave messages, and never received any calls back from them. So,
Okay. Any other questions or comments? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Then we'll go to 9.1, the road deputy. And the reason I pulled this out of is because of policy, it says, and the wage, so forth. And to me, it shouldn't be in the consent items if it,
Yep,
A
we
little
can do
bit
it either way,
different.
that's fine.
okay.
All right. So we got the agenda item here is for hiring Jeremy Pape as a full-time road deputy. Background, hired Jeremy Pape as full-time road deputy. Start date would be the 26th of this month. Interview process was completed. Jeremy Pape was selected as the best candidate for the full-time position. Pape starting wage would be grade 10, step 5, $29.33 an hour. Options are to hire Jeremy Pape full-time, starting on the 26th, or do not hire Jeremy Pape. Recommendations is to hire Jeremy Pape full-time, start date the 26th of this month, and is budgeted.
Okay. I will ask if there's a motion for approval.
so moved.
Motion by Kircher. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Kenizel. Discussion.
Madam Chair, what is the starting pay normally for a deputy?
It's around 24, I believe.
Okay.
And
He's coming with 10-plus years of experience from Staples Police Department.
I understand that, but I'm a little concerned about with the unions, what they're gonna do to us by leapfrogging. Been down this road before.
Madam Chair, we've always given adjustments to experience in the past. I don't know why this is an issue now.
You're
I'm
not
an
gonna get
example of
You're
that.
not gonna get experience unless you
Yeah.
pay for it, so.
I was lateraled in when I got hired. I had 12 years' experience at Long Prairie.
But I just wanna make my point clear, that
No problem.
if we're leapfrogging, and this comes back and bites us in the ass, we're gonna be in trouble.
any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
And carries.
Thank you.
Standing reports, auditor treasurer.
Currently, on our plate down there, we're preparing for mobile home tax statements to be mailed out by July 15th. We have a lot of year-end reporting that seems strange now, but the state's fiscal year end is June 30th, so July will be a lot of reporting for us to them. Finance Committee has been working on the preliminary budget, moving ahead with that. And as far as the American Rescue Plan funds, we're still in the process. I did speak with a representative at the Treasury Department. Our application is moved out of the pending draft file to the processing file, so hopefully, we know the funds are there, they just have to follow proper protocol. And when we receive our email, she confirmed, once we receive that, then within 7 days, the money should fall into our accounts, so just wanted to update you on that, because it's been quite the process for us, but we're getting there. All I have.
Okay, commissioners?
Yes, Madam Chair. It's just great to get back to in-person meetings. I'm still doing one that's kind of a hybrid. That is really hard, you know, because you have a group that is in person and a group that's online, and you can't hear the people that are online, and it makes it really interesting. So hopefully that these fellow commissioners of mine on the CPT board will start coming in person. And I understand it's really nice, not, you know, for a lot of them, they don't have to drive 3 hours. So they can just sit at home and get online and watch it, but, yeah. And then I attended the 4th of July parade in West Union. It was just great to get out there, see the kids, see people smiling and having a good time. So that's all I got.
Okay. Any other commissioners report? I'd just like to make a note that we did have the hearing on Lake Shamana, and it was a very well attended. It was cut off at a certain time, and it will be resuming in near future when we get a date. But it was very well attended, very informational. Coordinators? Chris?
Madam Chair, the only thing that I have to report is I continue to attend webinars regarding the fiscal relief funds, and when we have them in the account, we'll make a plan for using those funds.
Okay, with that, then we will recess until July 20th. And then you guys want
So I handed out this prior to the start of the commissioners meeting, some information. I emailed it to Jolene already.
I got it.
Okay. Oh, didn't even pay attention. So at our we've had a lot of requests for peak height increases on accessory structures in our shoreline zoning areas, which right now our cap is 18 feet. You can always request a variance to that. And it's been kind of the course of action that most of these things are granted with maybe a condition to create some screening or something to that effect. But looking at the amount of requests, we had a discussion about this at the June Board of Adjustments meeting. You can see how many requests we've had over the past year and a half, with every one of them being granted. And the consideration was brought up that maybe it's time to give a review of this requirement and see if it's time to increase that requirement based on the information we have. You can see the requests we've had, how it's broken down in some of the neighboring counties. We, in the surrounding counties with information that we could easily find, we definitely have the lowest peak height cap for accessory structures. DNR was a part of that conversation during the Board of Adjustments, and DNR does not have any requirement on peak height in shoreline zoning. It's up to the county to decide that. I'm here today just looking to get some thoughts or consensus if this should be going to the Planning Commission for review of that ordinance for potential increase of our cap on peak heights for accessory structures.
My answer is yes.
My input is it's really nice to see stuff like this come in and then be able to review it and look at it and try to make changes where it can make things a little more simplified instead of running them through a big rigmarole to get it
Yep.
done. I would agree with Commissioner Kircher. I think it's something that should be looked at as being changed.
Other questions, comments?
Well, the only concern I have by living on the lake and watching all these development is when you start adding on to your roofs and dumping more on your neighbor. And we're seeing more and more of that because
Yeah.
you're limited your space on your mound system. Okay, and you put a frickin' big mound of dirt on your lake lot, and then all of a sudden you block the water off, and then you got water problems. And increasing the runoff, trying to figure out where you're gonna put all that runoff is a concern, you know?
Yep.
And I got neighbors across the road that, you know, they had to go up. They didn't have the room, you know, they had a 60-foot lot instead of, but they were very conscious about their neighbors,
Sure.
so.
And we do have those impervious surface requirements in place. One example to address what Commissioner Newman was referencing, I think it was Morrison County had a 18-foot peak height unless you can increase your setback to your neighbors and the lake and the road right-of-way by more than, or double or more than what the requirement is, you can go higher. So that gives you a little more space and kind of forces people to really be aware of what they're proposing if they want to increase that peak height.
Madam Chair, just seeing what Otter Tail has, which is one of the counties that has most of the lakes in Minnesota probably, not the top one, but at least a lot of lakes, their dwelling is 35 feet. So they obviously have addressed the issue, looked at it, and, well, maybe they started out or have increased their height. And Cass County has a lot of lakes also. We've been holding pretty tight to this 18 feet, I think, or 18.5, and I think it's, in some instances, and maybe a lot, has restricted growth in the county a little bit for dwellings, so.
Yep. I would agree with the comments. I think it's time to address this and take a good hard look at what's reasonable when you have this many requests coming in. And any reasonable size shed typically requires a peak height greater than 18 feet, and also the things that people are trying to store nowadays require a higher door height. So that's going to push your roof height up. So our intention is probably to talk with some local contractors, kind of get an idea of what structures look like, what kind of door height and peak height is related to that, and we'll bring that to the Planning Commission for consideration. I think that's the consensus I'm getting here.
Adam, after you, then would you bring it again back to a
Yep.
work session?
I can if you'd like to. Typically, we have it as part of the planning commission, and then they generate that recommendation that would come back to the board for adoption, or you could send it back. Ordinance amendments like this don't have the 60-day rule like a lot of this, so we can take our time, make sure we get it right, and yeah. So when we have a recommendation from the planning commission, we would just present that at a board meeting.
Work session, or,
Yeah.
you want a work session or a board meeting?
I think we should make a decision. I think we can always refer it back as a board.
Correct.
So
Yep.
I think we should have
And-
it in front of
And
the
I would
board.
probably go along with the 25 feet, 24 feet, but I wouldn't go above that.
Bring it back to a board meeting then.
Okay, yep, the board would formally adopt that ordinance change. And then, because we're finally able to have in-person meetings, we'll be going back and addressing some of those ordinance amendments that we talked about more than a year ago now. We'll start filtering those in also,
Okay,
so,
very good.
all right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Madam Chair, could I ask,
Oh, yeah.
there was an issue I brought up a few weeks ago that affected Commissioner Newman's area and mine in the expansion of a business.
Mm-hmm.
How are we moving on that one?
I went and visited the Rock Tavern and talked with them. I don't think that what they're proposing will automatically trigger a septic compliance. But so far, the only option we have is that our county loan program. And then we were just discussing some stuff that might, I don't know as much as Chris about it, but hopefully there was some additional help that could be in the near future for these businesses looking for septic upgrades.
Okay, because she's requesting to expand her building, which in fact would trigger the septic system.
So, only if you're increasing the number of employees or guests in there, they're looking to like add storage.
Storage,
Yep. Yeah. So I dug through that, and I'm not seeing anything that would trigger a conditional use because they're not, their building might be a little bit bigger, but they're not adding employees, not adding the number of guests they can seat or anything like that. So it wouldn't necessarily automatically trigger septic compliance also.
Well, then my question is, has she applied for a permit or should she come in?
I just visited with them last week. No permit's been applied for yet because we have some things to work out. They're tucked in between the lake, and a chunk of the structure already is probably within the road right of way.
Yeah.
So I was going to get Lauren involved and have them review it with us also to make sure we're checking all the correct boxes.
Good, thank you.
Yep.
So, Madam Chair, the establishment in mine has submitted a design.
Yep. That's right.
So how's that going?
I haven't talked with them at all. Chris was looking over the design, and other than that, I don't think it's gone much further than that because I think there was maybe some stuff Chris was working with the contractor on. It's right on that verge of can the county handle, or do we need to have an advanced inspector look at it? And we're kind of walking through that process now. We have an agreement with Stearns County because they have an advanced inspector, so we would farm that out to them if it was needed.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
My paper. Up next would be to create a lake improvement district for Lake Osakis.
Bruce? Okay. Bruce Magnets?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I think there's a presentation coming up there. It's a shortened version of what we provided at the Lake Association meeting, just kind of some background. Some of you may be familiar with the folks on the board. I'm Bruce Magnus. I've lived on the lake for 5 years. Volunteered as president of the association. Oh, excuse me. Volunteered as president of the association back in March. So, after being asked to consider some changes on and around the lake. So this is the group. Those with stars or asterisks by them are folks that live on the lake permanent, full-time. So just side note, basically. Really the purpose of the Lake Association is similar to many, and that's to restore, improve, support, and educate. That's really where we're at, and the biggest challenge that we have today is this curly leaf pondweed. It's an aquatic invasive species that presents challenges for our environment. you know, from the standpoint of, it supports, from a nutrient release standpoint, it supports an algae bloom. It is difficult for fishing because it catches your line and such. It wraps up in boat motors. And then comes the residue that washes up into the shoreline. So if we move through this,
You just let me know.
yeah,
Keep
okay.
going.
The curly pondweed management takes in the range of 3 to 5 years. But continued monitoring is what's required. And there's many lakes that have in Minnesota that have established lake improvement districts just for this purpose, to deal with curly leaf pondweed or other invasive species. So another photo of it, you know, the curly edges, serration. If you move on, it kind of gives us an idea of the life cycle and why it's so unique. The uniqueness is it starts growing in the winter, and then it matures and dies off in midsummer. The concept from a management standpoint is eradicate it or eliminate it prior to seed set, or those turions that would lay in the bottom of the lake and emerge next season. So that's really the management tactic in place across the state. You know, dense mats that we see, you know, it truly limits the native plant growth. And it obviously interferes with recreation. There it states, of course, it dies off in that midsummer. It supports that algae bloom with the nutrients it releases, and as well as decreases that water clarity. So go ahead. That's probably reiteration, so we can roll on. So in the past, the history really on Lake Osakis is, you know, the curly pondweed came into North America in the late 1800s, early 1900s. It probably landed on Lake Osakis prior to World War II. So methods that are shown here, how to control it: draw down on the lake, mechanical harvest, and then of course the herbicide application. 2 times in the history of Lake Osakis has this ever been tried to manage. Back in the 80s, there was a mechanical harvest that took place, and then in 07, 08, and 09, there was a herbicide application program. So this kind of walks through the life cycle. Certainly if you've got questions on that. So that's fine. Let's roll for the sake of time. So Aquathol K, or Endothol it's called, is really the application, herbicide application. And it doesn't affect the drinking water or swimming, any lake activities. So just to understand that the herbicides used is widely adapted. So this is a map of what was surveyed last year, and the circled locations are a recommendation from the surveyors as to where treatment should take place because we had financial limitations. There's about 100 acres there, well, 109.41 total. And then, so we did treat those areas that are circled this year. Reports and my observations are very high level of satisfaction.
Well, you spray the weed itself, or is that
Yeah,
what you're
so if you saw the boat in the picture there, there's a boom on there, and then the hoses hang down in the water.
Okay.
So then, and they look for a calm day to do it. But yeah, they actually spray the areas that have been surveyed and identified where the population exists. So. Okay, so a little discussion around the funding and, you know, how do we move forward, or the funding that took place last year. You know, our membership is low. It's a voluntary membership, right? So there's 883 properties, but only 218 members, right? You know, many folks just, well, expect somebody else to pay for it, or, you know, it'll take care of itself, right? You know, so our idea is, from an option standpoint, is obviously raffle tickets and fundraisers of sort. Pull tabs have been discussed, obviously donations. So those are the things that the association would intend to continue with or initiate, that if they're not already in place. So, and then of course the Lake Improvement District, which does involve assessments. So one of the common things from a feedback when we enter this discussion with folks is, well, what about the public, general public that uses it? Aren't they going to pay some of the bill, right? And of course, there's grants available, and grants come through the county, obviously, but they're also based on the number of parking spaces at the boat ramps. So that's how the Department of Revenue decides how much each county gets. And then there is a DNR grant that maxes out at $5,000. So, so the proposal is to spread the cost of the remaining budget over across those 883 properties, and those are the first tier properties around the lake, not second tier. So. So this is part of a letter, and I think the letter is in front of you, that we posted on our website, and then as well as the Facebook account. My purpose behind that was inform the public, let them know the condition of our lake and the situation, why it is the way it is, but then also what our options are to go forward with. And the letter gives you a pretty good idea. This summarizes the area to address, that 367 acres. And if you move on to the next one, hey Doug. So the cost on it, so the application rates of the herbicide really vary per acre based on water depth. So the deeper the water, the more herbicide that you have to apply. So that's why we see a lot of variability in the rates. So the estimates we have based on the surveys across the whole lake is the total of 367 acres runs just over 200,000. Now that's prior to any grant and aid or any fundraiser money coming from the association. So. Again, restated there, treatments are required for 3 to 5 years. So here's the explanation at letter 2, as well as we've asked the commissioners as well as City of Osakis to consider this. We did have a unanimous vote at our annual meeting, or unanimous decision to move forward with the lid proposal. So here's the surveys from the 2 years. As you can see on the south end of the lake, there's 2 large parcels, Miller Bay and then Town Bay. Miller Bay, there's 88 acres there. Town Bay, there's 127 acres. It's rather futile to treat part of that because it's just going to continue to be a challenge. So those are the areas that are proposed. Annually, prior to spray application, there needs to be a survey as well, and that's not figured in on that 200,000. So we get, if we form a lid, obviously there may be some county administration fees. I understand that, and I think the general public would understand that. But there's also some survey fees required as well. So fairly unknown at this point what the grant and aid money might be. So it's right now, actually we don't know what the grant and aid money would be until the applications are submitted. It kind of depends on the county, how much money came in, but also what the demand is. So we really appreciate you considering this. It really has become a challenge for many of the property owners, and as I stated earlier, one of the main reasons why I was asked to by folks in the community to volunteer as president to lead the charge with development and establishing of the lid. Any questions to?
Commissioners, questions, comments?
I do, Madam Chair, the lake takes up three jurisdictions. One is Todd, the other is Douglas, and the other is the city of Osakis.
Correct.
And how are you approaching that?
So, joint powers is the intended, or would be required in order to even establish a lid. And joint powers, I would hope, would be managed by Todd County because the majority of the properties are in Todd County. There's 883 total, 163 of those properties are in Douglas County.
Okay, so you say joint powers would have to be organized. I'm assuming that'd be the statutory requirement. And you said Todd County would be the main government agency.
Right.
What does that put us at risk for liability as far as the joint powers? Is there any?
Good question. I guess I hadn't explored that yet, but that's a.
Because that's one concern I would have if we did this. The other thing is, does the lid, if they do a joint powers, does the lid need permission from all three counties to organize? The other question I have is, I'm assuming you're, and looking at what you're saying, you're starting out with a user fee with 218 parcels, if I'm correct. 218 homeowners, 218 businesses.
So there's a total of 883 properties, 218 membership at the time that this was written. I haven't checked on where we're at for this year's membership, but yeah, from a that's our limitation on funding. We've got a $50 membership, and it really isn't near what the needs are.
From your figure, from my figures, that leaves 665 other potential members to the lid, if I am looking
Correct.
at this correctly.
Correct.
And if you start out with a user's fee, does the lid intend to be a taxing authority?
Yes. Well, excuse me, no. The lids, the way they're designed is there's a budget proposal, and it's presented to the commissioners. The commissioners then choose to approve or adjust, or however that might take place.
It also has to be approved by the DNR also. So it's something that if we propose to you and you'd say it's okay, we want to spray 400 acres, the DNR may come back and says only 200, and this is what we can only do. So they're a governing board
Well,
also.
that's fine. I have no issue about what you're gonna spray or how many acres. My issue is, if you start out as a user's fee, which to me is a tax, are you going to become, and I heard you say, yes, you wanna become a taxing authority, and we have issues with that already with the, and concerns with the watershed district. And again, then my phone starts ringing off the wall, how come my taxes went up? And then we look at, we try to explain to people, well, your township, your city, your schools, and now the lid is part of your increases, but we as a county board usually get the fingers pointed at us that we're the ones why the taxes went up. So it's just a concern that I have. I've talked to Doug a little bit about this. And not that I don't want the lake cleaned up, I think it should be cleaned up in all lakes. We want to have good lakes in our county, but the issue is always taxes or user fees. And then here we come into a big complaining session because you raised my taxes and now blah, blah, blah. So, I just would like answers to those questions.
Yep.
And I'm assuming you will come up with a budget to propose to us in the near future or whenever you.
Yeah, so once the joint powers establishment really involves a public hearing. And we've talked about, setting something like that up in Osakis, and, that's part of the reason why I posted what I have on the website and on Facebook, so people start to learn and understand. Obviously, right away, there was some feedback, not always positive, right? And we had an opportunity last week to discuss that with those folks, and I think they're in a much better spot.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to rain on your parade,
Oh,
but just
no.
questions I have,
Yeah,
so.
so question, it would be, Big Swan has a
Yes,
lid
it's in my
today.
district, yes.
So are they a taxing authority with the lid?
They do not tax, I don't
No,
believe. so.
all they do is send the auditor treasurer's office a listing.
Yep.
And then they come before the board if it's gonna be a 5-year special assessment.
Right.
And then the board approves that
They
they can
haven't
do
been in
that.
front of us for a while, but they have submitted their figures and,
Yeah, I would expect ours would be something similar.
okay.
And Madam Chair, I think that's what I thought we would be looking at would be that.
Yep.
Of going in, finding the project, saying, okay, if it's a five-year lid, that's what you're gonna set that lid up for 5 years, and you know, if you have the right to dissolve it. I think
Right.
once you establish it, you do have that right to dissolve it, so.
Yeah, if it serves no purpose, why continue with it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and from the past experience of attending the watershed meetings, I mean, you sit back and the first thing they'll do, Commissioner Kircher, is hire an engineer at $100,000, and you don't even spray the weeds. And you could use that $100,000 to spray the weeds and address the issue. And then the other thing would have been is assess people unfairly.
Yep, yep.
And
So-
that's an issue. You know, if you're all gonna be in this boat, you should all pay the same. One individual shouldn't pay more than the other, because you're going for the same purpose.
Right. And, some of the feedback I've received already, and many of the board members as well, is, okay, so I live, I live on the lake, I own this property, but we've got public landings, and the general public is using this and maybe bringing the problems in more so than what we are as property owners, right? Well, that's really what the grant and aid money is for, and why we would do the fundraisers as a association yet, and make our contribution there, continue to make the contributions to offset some of that cost.
And then, Madam Chair, there's also, I had an individual tell me that there's a county that has a AIS sticker. They charge like $50 for that sticker,
Oh,
and if you wanna get on the lake within that county, you have to have that AIS sticker. And that would hit more of the individuals, and I never thought of that, but
I hadn't
I
either.
thought he said it was out in North Dakota or something, but.
yeah, North Dakota, in order to drop your boat in the water over there, you have to have that
AIS
sticker.
sticker, so that's-
AIS sticker, yep.
So it was North Dakota,
Yep.
yeah. So, I'll be honest with you, I hadn't been out in the lake in probably 10 years, and my wife and I went out on a pontoon ride, and I went, holy crap. Some of those lakeshore owners especially, and I understand where the people on the big end are coming from,
Yeah,
but you get out in that narrow end out there, there's a lot of population out there, there's a lot of nice homes.
there is.
And, I mean, it'll stop your pontoon dead.
Oh, yeah, you gotta stop and back up, dump the
Yep.
weed, the hay bale you got on the back, and
Yeah, so I was just shocked as how bad that has gotten, so. But thank you for coming in.
Yep, you bet, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you.
You bet.
Next will be the Sauk River Watershed appointed application interviews.
One applicant here, so
Yep.
you ready?
G.
Oh, there are. Sure.
David Drager pulled out.
Actually, there was no order, it's just how they arrived, so did you?
I have no order.
I
However,
would just take them by the way I received them then.
that's
Yeah, that'd be fine.
So our first one would be Eugene Menson, then Curtis Botner, and then Gary Barber.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
You want to state your name and,
My name is Gene Menson, and I'm here looking for appointment to the Sauk Center, or Sauk River Watershed Board as managers.
questions, commissioners, or do you have a presentation or anything?
You have his application, correct?
No, we
Copies?
don't.
You didn't get copies in your email?
Do you guys have them?
Let's see.
Oh, okay. Well, Eugene, if you just want to go through your application, I can go make copies
I
of
know.
it.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
I'm
we got 'em.
requesting appointment because I've had a number of people ask me if I was interested in getting on the board. I do work in water management. Some people call it drainage or tiling. So I do a lot of work out in the Red River watershed, Boise to Sioux watershed. I work in North Dakota as well with the counties out there as far as their drainage goes and drain board. Have a lot of experience with the government officials, different departments of the federal, state government when it comes to watershed. I've also participated in wetland restoration projects. So I've kind of seen both ends of the spectrum there. I guess that's about it, if you have questions.
Madam Chair, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
go ahead.
Eugene, what do you think of the watershed district?
I think it's, I don't know, I can say I think it's young. I've went through a lot of changes in the Boise to Sioux watershed. I see the Red River is a little, not quite as far as the Sauk River watershed. I think they do a lot of engineering, a lot of good work with their ditches, but I don't think they have the ditch systems like Wilton County has or the Boise to Sioux watershed has. But I see they are doing something with their drainage ditches. So as far as their permitting, it's different, and that's what I see throughout the state, throughout North Dakota, South Dakota. There's a lot of differences, different approaches on trying to do the same thing.
So the philosophy and policy of the Sauk River watershed, do you think that it's appropriate, or do you think you are going to want to go on and make some corrections, or what do you intend to do once you get on the watershed?
Well, I'd like, a guy needs to get involved so he sees exactly how it works and where's all this coming from. I've seen a lot of changes out in the other watersheds, which you have to have some other people's perspective on how you're going to change things where it doesn't create a bigger issue.
And these people that called you, why did they want you to get on the watershed district?
They got my name from somewhere since they were asking me for help with some issues they had with the Sauk Center Watershed District on some ditch assessments, tiling projects. Myself, I've only been involved in one meeting at the watershed there where I was involved with the tiling project. And I think I can bring a lot of experience to the watershed. I think, I guess I haven't been to enough meetings to say they're missing something, but I think there's a lot more to what other water districts are doing that I could bring to the table, so they can understand how it's done elsewhere.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners?
Madam Chair, Gene, you want to tell where you reside, which township?
I'm in Candota. I am a mile west of Cedar Lake off of Highway 71, south end of the county. Born in Sauk Center, raised in Long Prairie, and then moved on with my career from there. Different states, made it back to the neighborhood in 2004.
Thank you.
Other questions, commissioners? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Commissioners, if you have your iPads, I did check with Jolene, and all applications were sent to you Wednesday via email, so. And we are making hard copies as
Oh,
we
I
speak.
got it. I just can't find it.
I do not see it coming on a Wednesday.
Be from Jolene on Wednesday with an attachment.
This last Wednesday?
Yeah.
No.
There it is. I got it.
Do you have it, Randy? I do not.
Okay.
I have a new one, but I don't have an old one.
Yeah, just go up there and do search and it'll come up.
There, got it now.
So I have Gary on, I think Gary Barber right away.
Think.
Who's next?
Would be Curtis. Is it Curtis? Yes.
Okay,
So I have their applications now. Jolene just sent them to me.
okay. Thank you, Denise.
Yeah.
Hi.
Morning.
My name is Kurt Botner, and I'm living on Lake Osakis. I guess technically it's Gordon Township. Currently on the Citizens Advisory Committee for the watershed. And I think you're gonna find probably the least impressive of all the applicants here. I don't have a background that's gonna ooh and ah people. I guess I'm a guy that just has a desire to get involved and help make things better. I guess that's what drives me on this.
Madam Chair,
Questions?
Kurt, you're on the Citizens Advisory Committee for the watershed?
Yes, I attended the last two meetings. They were Zoom. And what kind of turned me on to the watershed district was, a while back, there was a Facebook posting by one of the managers. He wasn't the manager at the time of the watershed. And kind of brought my attention to, oh, we have a watershed district, because otherwise you really don't know it's there, I mean, as an average citizen. So then I thought, okay, that's something that affects all of us, and I thought,
Yeah.
it's time to get involved, it's time to try to make a difference.
Well, I'm a little confused. If you're on the Citizens Advisory Committee, what do you do as the Citizen Advisory Committee?
Thank you.
We're basically a sounding board for some of the ideas of
Okay.
the district.
So they shoot it to you, and then you send back some communication?
Yeah, an example, what they were talking about the last meeting was, there was a question of, how should we set up the district in assessing people? And so they would just get our input, basically, I think, a citizen input of what the feeling is. Trying to gauge the feeling of the people that they're supposed to serve.
How long have you been on that committee?
Not that long, 3 months.
Thank you.
Commissioners?
Yeah, Madam Chair. Kurt, are you a year-round resident in?
Yes, year-round.
Okay.
We bought the property in 2003. At the time, I was still working. My family's from Alexandria, or actually Garfield, and would summer up here all the time. But then when I retired, I came up here full-time and gave up life in the big city, which was not too hard to do. And I guess, you know, what I would bring to the or to this as a manager is somebody that, you know, is open-minded, somebody that has common sense, somebody that doesn't have a bunch of baggage with them, so I don't have any ties, I don't have any indebtitude to anyone, which is going to allow me to make an open and fair decision. Got a lot to learn, but we can always learn, but what you can't, I think, bring in is the right attitude. And I think I'm gonna bring a new voice, a fresh voice. Be honest with you, I'm gonna ask a lot of questions, I'm gonna challenge, because I take the role serious. But in the end, I realize that it's a team, and as a team, you know, you work together to better what you're trying to achieve.
So, Madam Chair, Kurt, there's a lot of controversy when, as a manager, when you have to decide on a county ditch within Stearns and Pope County. I know the watershed likes to, again, hire engineers and spend $150,000 before any dirt gets moved within that ditch. Sometimes the farmers get billed $600,000-$700,000 for ditch assessment. What do you know about county ditches?
I think JD2 has kind of educated me to a degree. And it's given me, I think, a basic understanding. But as far as the particulars in any specific case, again, I'm not an expert, but I do have the ability to learn. I do have the intelligence to know how to find the answers. And I have the motivation to find those answers.
Okay.
Like I say, that's probably that's a weak point I think that I have, is that I don't come before you with a strong background. I don't have a hydrology or land or anything. I'm just a guy that wants to do the right thing and for the people.
Okay.
And I know I would say with, you asked the previous applicant about, I guess, my thoughts of the watershed district. I have some concerns with it. I think it seems like there's not a lot of, what I've come up impressed is from the meetings I've been, there's not a lot of accountability. There's not a lot of, an example, when they just cleaned out the ditch, JD2 ditch, and I asked about monitoring. You know, do you monitor that ditch to see what's going into the lake? So that we can see, you know, we can judge, did cleaning out this ditch actually do what we paid for? And, you know, there's like, no, we don't really monitor that. There's no follow-up. So I think that needs to change. I think it needs to be more transparent. I think it needs to be more formal. I mean, because you're talking about the people's money that you're spending, and I think there should be an overriding feeling of responsibility that it's the people's money. Because I know when I worked, I was involved in the union for a long time. And we would have the union members' dues. And they kind of looked at it as like, hey, here's all this money. It's not our money, but it's here in this drawer so we can spend it on all this neat stuff that we want. And I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think we have to remember whose money it is and be very frugal in how you spend it. So
I'm starting to ramble, I'm sorry. I think that's-
Commissioners, any other questions?
Thank you.
Guess I didn't press it. Thank you.
Morning, Commissioners. Getting a nice $1 million rain, maybe $1 billion, I don't know.
It's still raining?
Yeah, it was raining pretty good.
Good rain.
Actually, though, when I got up to the intersection coming in, it was starting to die out, so
A little bit too late though, maybe.
hopefully not. Well, my name is Gary Barber, and we meet again, I guess this would be, of course, my term expired June 30th. This would be, I served out the last 6 months of a previous term, and then I've had 2 terms prior, so this would be my 3rd term coming up. I've lived on Lake Osakis since 2011. And of course, I got involved, well, in the Lake Association. I was president. I currently relinquished that. So, but I'm still on the board there. And I got on the watershed, and then, like I said, this would be my 3rd term. I enjoy it. I took it very serious because I go to a lot of the meetings that they conduct and so forth to try to learn as much as possible, so that I am hopefully making the right decisions when it comes to it. I noticed earlier that they were alluding to Pope and Stearns County. We do those ditches because the county gave them up and put it under us, and I can see why. They didn't do anything, or they haven't done anything since the 1930s. So a lot of those ditches were in disrepair, and so we've been trying to do a lot of things with getting those ditches back into repair by getting them cleaned out, because a lot of overgrowth, vegetation, trees, et cetera, in them. But, yeah, the biggest concern I have going forward is there's a pretty good sized learning curve on this with most candidates, because there's a lot to learn. And that's why I went out and tried to attend as much as that I could do to learn, so that I could be a good manager. So with that, I guess I'll open up to any questions that might be out there.
Questions? Comments?
So I do have one, Madam Chair. I just got to ask Gary a question. Where did you vote on the $2 million new facility? Did you
I
vote?
voted for it. Matter of
Okay.
fact, I was on the building committee.
Okay.
So Gary, what do you think of the watershed district?
Well, I might be biased, but I think we're doing a good job. We're doing what we're being tasked to do. Yes, there's always controversy. As you know, being in public office, there is. You don't necessarily always please everybody, but you try to do the things that are best for the watershed, even though there's some controversy sometimes. And that, I guess that, I've been involved in public service most of my life, and even at one time, I was a council member for the city of Granite Falls, so I've been dealing with the public for a long, long time. Even in my career, I worked for 20 years working for Minnesota colleges and universities and doing tuition, so I was dealing with a lot of controversy there too, because people weren't happy necessarily with the tuitions and so forth, so had to sit down with a lot of times parents or students and work out those issues also, so it's interesting, but I enjoy being in public service. Trying to wind down though on some things, that's why I gave up being president of the Lake Association.
And if I may, Madam Chair, I see you're on the board of directors there. What do you think of the organizing a lid?
The concept is good, only from the standpoint, I feel, for example, the membership, you know, we got 800 and some people or parcels, and yet only the membership in Lake Association is, you know, I've tried to get that membership up, but it swings both ways. You know, when you got 200 people and dues are $50, you're only generating a very small amount of money, and the issues on the lake are big because the lake is big. So, for example, talking about Curly Leaf Pond, we can't do much because of the simple fact there's no money, or not enough money to do what you really need to do. And this way, if you're talking about a lid, of course, that's going to generate where, you know, not just a few are going to be paying for everybody on the lake. A lid would be, everybody's going to be paying then. Now, there was an issue that was thrown out that I'm not happy about, that I would oppose, and that is, I heard that if you have a $300,000 property and you got a $2 million property next to each other, they're gonna pay the same. I don't think the public's gonna buy that at all. I think they're still gonna look at, you know, assessed values tax-wise, where you're gonna be based on what your assessments are. That would be, because I don't think people are gonna think it's fair to have a $2 million property, and he's gonna pay the same as my $300,000 property. I guess that's my biggest concern there.
Thank you.
So, Madam Chair, I have a question. At the last Sauk River watershed meeting, it was brought out that you guys get one per diem to attend the meeting. And that part of that is being a representation on the Stearns and Pope County ditches as ditch authority. Okay, so us commissioners wear multiple hats, and we are the ditch authority for Todd County, okay? Anytime we would have a special meeting, our per diem would go against the ditch, because it was a meeting for that ditch, whether it was 19, 21, doesn't matter. I found it really interesting. What's your thoughts on separating the meeting more, or having a separate night where you guys represent Stearns and Pope County on their ditches, and your per diem gets paid instead of by the taxpayers of the Sauk River, which is majority of my district and some of Dave's and some of Rod's, that your per diem would come out of the ditch, or be billed towards the ditch.
Of course, that hasn't necessarily obviously been done in the past. Now, I don't know, are you talking about having are you alluding to having separate meetings more so than having, in other words, the ditch authority meeting separate from the regular meeting?
I think, to be fair to the taxpayers of Todd County, why we're paying a manager that represents Todd County, or two managers that represent Todd County, to represent Stearns and Pope County ditches. To me, that doesn't make any sense. It should be strictly Pope County and Stearns County paying your per diem for that discussion on their ditches.
Well, as an accountant, that makes sense to me.
Thank you.
And that definitely would be something that I could bring forward.
I think
You
that
know.
needs to be discussed,
And-
because
but-
I was kind of shocked going, what the hell are our taxpayers paying our managers to make decisions on Stearns and Polk County ditches? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I don't think it would necessarily be an accounting nightmare. But when we have a ditch authority meeting, thing of it is, we not only do just Pope and that, I mean, we do the whole watershed, pretty much. There's other issues. But mostly, the ditch authority is, yes, for the Stearns and Pope.
Yep.
So it could be done that way. The only thing it would be is have, I don't know who would do it, but necessarily, but that would have to be considered as to who would keep track of how much time for Stearns ditches and someone for Pope ditches, but I don't think that would be that big an issue.
Well, it would depend on where the ditch was, whether it was a joint county ditch
Yeah,
or
we
not.
don't have that many. I think the only one I can think of is one that we're dealing with right now, it's
Yep.
down in Pope and Stearns down south.
Okay,
That answer your question?
yeah,
Okay.
yep, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anything else to come before the work session today?
We'll be making a decision on the manager on the 20th of July, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
We'll put it on the agenda. Yep, at the
Okay.
regular board meeting.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Just a quick comment on that. You know, for right now, for example, I'm no longer actually on the watershed board. It would be really nice to do the applications earlier so that there's a smoother transition, because of the simple fact that now you know, we're gonna have that meeting. Our meeting is also on the 20th. Well, you won't have a selection for that meeting, so you'll be short one for the managers. I know, for example, on Douglas, they've already picked theirs, you know.
I think, Madam Chair, he should stay our interim until we select.
Anyway, just the thought.
We
because
will
of that.
have someone, though,
So,
on the
yeah.
morning of the 20th,
Yep,
right?
yeah,
So whoever we select on the morning of the 20th
we'll have to go that
would
night.
have to go to that meeting, right?
But based on when you, excuse me, commissioners, but the problem is, if it's not the same one, I'm not saying I'm a shoo-in. What I'm saying is when you select it, the watershed
Yes, to
agenda is made ahead of time, and so they have to have the oath ready and whatever for the individual that is selected. So if it's in the morning and the meeting's that night, that's gonna be a little short, is all. That would be my only concern, so.
We can work with the watershed district to have the paper and document all ready for them to go that evening. We don't get this to publish until we hear from the watershed, so our hands are tied as far as how fast we get it in the paper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I don't know that your position ends and that they need to hire somebody until they email me.
Okay.
And so that's why
Then
it
I
gets
have to talk to
waylaid,
the
yeah, and then you have to
administrator.
run with the papers because they only print so often, you know.
Right.
By the time I get the data, and then we have to leave it open for 2 weeks.
Okay.
But we can work with the watershed district to have them have a blank, like we do here, we have blank, you know, board actions ready.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may make a comment. I think this was very inappropriate how we conducted this interview process. These applicants sat and listened to everybody's answer, and I think it's very inappropriate. We should have had a questionnaire, so we were consistent with the interview process. So I'm just sharing my frustration with this. I think it was very inappropriate, so.
Right, and I did ask if we wanted to have questions, and I didn't get a response.
We
but-
have in the past done that, and. I
Madam
don't-
Chair, are we still part of the work session? We're still, I mean.
Yep, I know.
Okay,
I
perfect.
want
Thank
this to
you.
be a matter of record.
Right, yeah.
Thank you.
I'm just not happy with this. These guys sat here and listened to each other, and it's very inappropriate how we did this, so I'm just sharing that with you, and I'm very disappointed that this is how this was conducted, so.
So who was in charge of that, Dave?
I don't know. Who is in charge of it? Auditor treasurer? Chair of the board?
Coordinator?
Coordinator? I don't care.
Just in speaking on my behalf, the last time we did this, we did have them in here, and they spoke in front of each other last time. And I do believe that it was just an open dialogue at that time, too.
Oh, we did.
Because I think I did ask at that time, should we have questions? And then I was told at that time that that's an HR matter, that there's only certain questions. I don't have the authority to be asking those things, so I did not
Madam-
drive any HR questions.
Madam Chair, if.
Yes.
If I was responsible for this, I will take full responsibility for it. I will clarify that when this was done last time, I was told specifically this is a function
Yep, and it
done by
is.
the auditor's office.
And it is,
so.
but there was no questions last time either, so I will
Sure.
take full responsibility too. We've never had questions, it's just been an open dialogue. They come in, visit, meet and greet, that's all it was
I don't
ever.
think it's
I think
fair
the
to the
last,
applicant.
the last interviews, I wrote up some of the questions.
And maybe you did, I
and
know, I
handed 'em
just.
out. I know I did, so. Because I've been attending the meetings, so it's like, yeah.
And Madam Chair, we
Can
can, the
work
auditor's
together,
office and
yeah.
I can work together to make the
We'll
process
we'll
smooth
just have
next
to
time.
all work together, yeah. And you know, I guess even, I did find that Jolene did send it all to us on Wednesday, but you had to go into her, you had to hit that little forward button, and then you had to hit the other whatever
Honest.
in order to get them. But I did find them on my,
Okay,
I'm just shocked
Yeah.
that nobody from Commissioner Kircher's district applied.
That's because I don't beg people to apply.
I don't.
Yeah.
I haven't said a word.